But I don't have time to exercise, and isn't eating healthy expensive?
It can be expensive, but you don't have to go to Whole Foods like my wife likes shopping at Whole Foods. Shout out to her. So first on the list, we might as well go through strong tier. So as you would expect, you would have a proprietary blend of supplements to take here and pharmaceutical medications, right?
That's right. Big pharma and big supplement, definitely at the top of the list. No,
Yep.
Actually, we have an investment for you that is even better and will offer an even faster return than crypto. Investing in an HSA is like an instant 20 to 30% return on your money. Yep. Because you don't pay taxes on that money, and you can use that money for pharmaceuticals and supplements or any health procedure, for the most part, that you want to invest in. So you get more buying power just for putting that money in an HSA or FSA. You want to be careful with an FSA and make sure that you spend it, because those are like use it or lose it, whereas an HSA will follow you even if you change plans or leave a job, something like that. You get to keep that money.
Yeah, an HSA is a no-brainer. Yes, it can be difficult to choose one and set one up, but then after that, it's like you're getting bonus points from not having to pay extra tax on that money. And a lot of plans, you can take them out for certain reasons, for example, retirement or whatnot. But that being said, we do like paying our taxes because they do go to some good causes. And if you guys want to pay extra tax, you can still get an HSA and you can still just donate extra tax money if you desire. There is actually a mechanism to where you can do that. Or of course, you can take this money and give it to a nonprofit or an organization that's a benefit corp as well. So
wait, so is paying extra taxes tax deductible?
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Yeah. Anyway, this is not supposed to be about tax. That's just the first thing on our S tier.
And the next two are our first two pillars of health. So diet and exercise, and we talk about these frequently on this and other podcasts. And really, this is another no-brainer as far as a place to invest your dollars and time in health. So if you're looking at the most bang for your buck, exercise-wise, we'll start there because people like to hear about exercise more than diet. So we'll give the viewers what they want. Where would you be spending your time if you had, let's say, 3 hours per week to exercise?
If I had 3 hours per week, I would spend 90 to 120 minutes. So an hour and a half to 2 hours with resistance training. Perhaps incorporate one of those days as high intensity interval training. And then somehow I would just make time to also do 90 more minutes of zone 2 cardio. So that adds up to what, 4 hours. But I would split it about half and half between resistance training and cardio, and doing an intense interval training, even if it's CrossFit style. CrossFit's not cool anymore, so you can't say CrossFit. But a CrossFit style workout, per time invested, it gives you a pretty high return on investment. You just don't want to do that vigorous interval training more than 2 times a week.
Yeah, I think that's similar to what I would do. I would pick probably 2 days. I would have one day where I'm doing full body resistance training, short rest periods between so I can hit everything. Another day where I'm doing a not CrossFit, but high intensity style training, also full body. And then I would probably do some high intensity interval for my cardio and split that up into another 2 days. So probably training 30 minutes, 2 high intensity interval training sessions, not specifically whole body resistance training, but something like intervals on a bike, maybe some sprinting, depending on the health of your connective tissue and how used to running you are. Because you certainly don't want to injure yourself, which, you do have a higher risk of injury when you're doing high intensity. But for time efficiency, it's hard to beat.
Yeah, that's a good summary of exercise and a lot of the pillars of health. And by the way, you can't say pillar without pill. Pill is in pillars, but I guess the more pillars of health you do, the less pills you will need, especially in the long term. Diet's the next one, and pretty much anything that you can get via supplementation, you can also get from diet. It can just be more difficult. The main thing here to concentrate on is protein quantity and quality. And in addition to that, especially depending on how much you're exercising, things like electrolytes, micronutrients, vitamins.
But I don't have time to exercise, and isn't eating healthy expensive?
It can be expensive, but you don't have to go to Whole Foods, like my wife likes shopping at Whole Foods. Shout out to her, to eat high quality food. We priced a few items at Walmart, and these are definitely good investments in your health. One of my favorites is a huge bag of potatoes. You can get 10 pounds for about $7.17. And yes, despite their oxalate content, they are healthy. I like eating them with fish. But there's a lot of different things that are actually quite affordable and quite healthy.
Yeah, you can actually get canned sardines for about $1 per can. Get even the My Plate recommendations are about 8 ounces per week. So that's $2.50 a week to get your recommended seafood in. And the average person gets basically 0 servings of seafood per week, which is a great nutrient-dense food, great source of omega-3s. And to my surprise, it's actually cheaper serving per serving to eat black canned beans than it is to eat Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts are actually slightly more expensive than beans. So when people say that eating healthy is expensive, there's a lot of examples where that is false. And then the argument becomes, well, it doesn't taste as good. And that is absolutely valid. A can of beans is not going to taste as good as a Pop-Tart.
Sauces are your friend. I guess that could be one TikTok trend that's actually helping is the mustard diet. If you find a mustard that you like, for example, a ground up mustard and salt, and that's the only ingredients, it can be essentially no calories, and you can put a lot of that on your food. Hot sauces. I love my fermented chilies. We just started fermenting our Tabasco peppers from this year for homemade fermented Tabasco sauce. Things like that might not be super cheap. Sauces do add up, but they do make a whole food, less palatable diet much more palatable.
Yeah, and putting protein sources aside, we did a rough estimate of what it would take to get 3 servings of fruits, 3 servings of vegetables, a serving of nuts, and 2 servings of seafood in per week. Mm-hmm. And it came out to about $70 a month, which is cheaper than your favorite powdered green supplement. So I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's not cheaper than a multivitamin, though.
It is not. Multivitamins are dirt cheap, and it's really surprising to me to see opposition when the average person goes into the doctor and they say, oh, well, my doc said, wasting my money. I don't need to take a multivitamin. Well, how much money are those people really wasting on a once-a-day multivitamin?
Maybe a decent amount if it's a Gucci brand. Not everybody needs a custom multivitamin that's AM, PM. If you've had bariatric surgery, or if you have malabsorption, or if you have, let's say you're a compound mutant homozygote for MTHFR, you probably need to make sure you have methylated B vitamins and folate. But not everybody needs a fancy multivitamin. You're mentioning that capsules in general could have better absorption. And then chelate multivitamins, for example, if some of your vitamins are, and some of your nutrients in the multivitamin are in different forms, they can have different bioavailabilities. But for the average individual, even an over-the-counter multivitamin, you'll absorb some of those nutrients, and it is a very low cost. So for your tier list of the investment portion of it, it's a high yield investment considering it's very low cost.
Yeah, and if we're looking in terms of population averages where 80% of people don't eat 3 servings of fruit, 90% of people don't eat 3 servings of vegetables, then I think for that 85% of the population, then a multivitamin probably does make sense. So we don't recommend a multivitamin for every single patient that comes to our practice. It really depends on what the baseline diet is and then what changes they're willing to make. Some people, they're never ever going to take or never ever going to eat vegetables. They just won't do it. And that's okay. You can build around what someone's preferences and values are. And that's where individualized medicine comes in.
Yeah. Our last strong tier recommendation is kind of a tie-in between the sunlight pillar of health and the sleep pillar of health.
Yeah. And this is a low cost, low time intervention. It's a mask that you should be wearing only when sleeping. So there's a lot of pro-mask and anti-mask people out there, and I really don't understand it, but one time you should definitely be wearing a mask is while you're sleeping, and specifically a sleeping mask. Not an N95, not a surgical mask, but a sleeping mask while sleeping.
Yep. Over what part of your body?
Over the eyes.
Anyway, that sums up our S tier, our strong tier of health spending dollars, I suppose. The only caveat to that, if there's any companies or individuals with companies that are considering sponsoring our podcast, that product is also in the strong tier of recommendations.
That's funny. A joke, of course, but it does seem like there are a lot of podcasts that act like a certain supplement is the foundation of health. And I think we've done a good job of being balanced and, putting lifestyle interventions, supplementation when appropriate, medications when appropriate is sort of our foundation. But the pillars of health are really something that we do live by.
Yeah, certainly. So, and again, supplements and medications are basically the same. They just have an effect on the body that's called pharmacodynamics, and everybody individually and uniquely metabolizes them. That's pharmacokinetics, and they're just tools to help the lifestyle interventions work. So just like somebody's not going to dig out of a pit of quicksand if you throw a shovel at them, at the same time, a shovel can be very useful. So that's how we see that. I think we can.
Sometimes you get hit by the shovel, and that's a side effect.
Yeah, that is definitely a side effect. And if you don't use it, it can also cause you to sink down even more.